I was driving home late one night 3 years ago. It was just me and the quiet road. I often worked late as a freelance software developer, so nighttime drives became routine. The dark streets felt safer than the busy day. As I drove past the trees, I saw a shadow move. It felt strange, like I wasn't alone, but I tried to shake it off. Over the next few weeks, odd things happened. I felt cold drafts blowing through my car, even with the windows rolled up. Sometimes I swerved as if I was avoiding something. A couple of times I thought I saw a figure in my rearview mirror. I wanted to believe it was just my imagination. Maybe I was just tired, desperate to finish my work and go home. Every night was the same. The unease grew stronger. Dark shapes hung over the road, and the trees seemed to bend towards me. Each time I glanced at the mirror, I felt dread build. What if he was back? I didn't know what I was expecting, but I convinced myself to keep driving. One night, it was extra quiet. I heard rustling in the trees. My heart raced again. I told myself it was nothing. As I drove on, I saw him standing there at the edge, just watching. My stomach dropped. I thought about stopping, but fear gripped me. I had to keep going. But as I drove, my eyes kept flicking to the rearview mirror. There he was, his eyes black and wide, locked onto me. My heart raced faster. What did he want? Was I imagining all of this? I pushed those thoughts away, trying to focus on the road ahead. Then one night, it happened. The figure stepped into the road, and I slammed the brakes. The screech felt like it lasted forever. It was hard to breathe. I squinted, trying to see him through the darkness. I was terrified, frozen in place. "Why are you with her?" The words echoed in my mind, hitting me like a brick. I turned around, heart pounding, but there was nobody there. The shadows swallowed everything. Every night after that, the feeling of dread grew heavier. I changed my route, hoping it would help. But it never did. I still saw him. Once I was sure he was standing right beside my car, staring through the window. I screamed and floored the gas, feeling dizzy with fear. Then, one night, as I was driving home from the office, I glanced at the mirror again. He was there, standing on the road, but this time, he smiled. It sent chills down my spine. I didn't know what to do. My grip tightened on the wheel, and I could feel the sweat on my palms. He stepped closer, and I froze. My heart raced like it was going to explode. Just as quickly as he appeared, he vanished, leaving a whisper of dread behind. I looked around, wild with panic. But nothing was there. I drove on, fear clutching me like a vice. What was wrong with me? What was happening? I couldn't keep running away, but the darkness felt like it was swallowing me whole. I was done. I wanted to confront this shadow. Still, my stomach churned at the thought of seeing him again. As I drove deeper into the night, I could feel the weight of my fear pressing down on me. Something had been watching, waiting for more than just a late-night drive. I didn't know if I would be able to face it. Would I ever get home? I didn't have much choice. I needed answers. That night, I turned my car around and took the same route, determined to face whatever was lurking in the shadows. The road was quiet, and the trees leaned in closer than before, almost as if they were daring me to go on. With each mile, my heart pounded. I could feel the familiar chill creeping in, wrapping around my spine. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, reminding myself I wasn't alone in the car this time. I had a purpose. I wasn't just going to drive past. I was going to confront him. As I reached the spot where I first saw him, I slowed down. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the trees like searchlights. I peered out of the window, half expecting him to materialize right there. But nothing. Only silence and shadows. I felt the dread bubble up in my chest, but I pushed it down. Then, just as I was about to drive away, I noticed something on the side of the road. There was an old, tattered jacket hanging from a branch. It looked out of place. I stepped out of my car, feeling foolish and cold. Why was I getting out? I could still feel that prickling sensation crawling up my skin. As I approached the jacket, something drew me in. The texture, the color, the faded stains. It felt eerily familiar. I reached out to touch it. That's when I heard it. A whisper, carried on the wind. "Why are you with her?" The words echoed just like they had before. I stumbled back, heart racing. My eyes darted around, looking for the source of the voice. I was alone. Or was I? Panic surged within me as I grabbed the jacket. I turned back toward my car. Fumbling with the door, I jumped inside and locked it. I was shaking. The mirror reflected the darkness behind me, and I couldn't help but glance. My breathing was erratic. That's when I saw him again. His silhouette stood at the edge of the headlights, watching. This time, I could see the smile carved onto his face. It was wide, unnatural, like he was in on some joke I couldn't understand. "Why are you with her?" he repeated, louder this time. I could feel my legs trembling. I didn't want to be here anymore. In a moment of panic, I slammed the car into reverse and sped back down the road, praying I wouldn't hit anything. The trees blurred by, and the darkness pressed in tighter. I could still see his figure in the rearview mirror, chasing me. Then, everything changed. The powerful headlights flickered off, plunging me into darkness. I cursed under my breath. My heart raced as I frantically twisted the key in the ignition. The car sputtered but wouldn't start. I was trapped. The road felt empty and vast, but I knew I wasn't alone. I could feel him close, lurking in the darkness beyond the trees. What did he want? Why was he haunting me? I could almost hear his breath against the window. As the night deepened, my eyes darted around, waiting, hoping for some sort of salvation. "Why are you with her?" echoed again in my mind, loud and insistent. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, I noticed movement to my left. Something had just emerged from the shadow behind the trees. I held my breath, terrified to see what it was. The figure stepped into the dim light, and I gasped, heart dropping. It was a girl, hair disheveled and clothes torn, her face pale like she had just come from a nightmare. She looked at me with wide, frantic eyes. "Help me," she whispered, but even those two words dripped with fear. What happened?" I stammered, half wanting to believe that she was a hallucination fueled by my panic. The girl took a step closer, her foot crunching on the gravel. "The man! He's coming! You have to move!" Her voice was urgent, and I felt a chill run down my spine. I glanced back toward the trees where I had seen him. Was he actually coming? Who? What man? I felt ridiculous asking, but I needed to know. She shook her head violently, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please," she cried, her voice rising. "You don't understand. He won't let you go." My eyes darted to the rearview mirror. The night felt thicker now, like it was closing in. Behind me I thought I saw movement, but it was just shadows. I couldn't wait for him to show up. "Get in the car!" I shouted, frantically unlocking the door, but she hesitated, glancing back toward the trees. "Don't let him take you!" she screamed, just before turning and running. "Wait!" I leaped out of my seat, but I wasn't sure if I could trust her. My instincts screamed to run back to the safety of my locked car. I watched helplessly as she disappeared into the dark. I heard a rustle nearby and panic surged through my body. I quickly clambered back into the car, slamming the door and locking it again. My eyes were glued to the trees. "You can't stay here," I told myself. But where could I go? I fumbled with the ignition again, praying it would start. It coughed, sputtered, then died in silence. The shroud of darkness closed in like a suffocating blanket. Suddenly, the figure reappeared, darting back toward me out of the woods. I clenched the steering wheel, ready to drive away as fast as I could, but she was screaming now, waving her arms wildly. "Don't leave!" I hesitated. The urgency in her voice sliced through my fear. What if she was right? What if the man, whoever he was, had something to do with her? But it was too late. The silhouette of a man stepped from the shadows, blocking her path. The chilling light of the moon illuminated his face briefly as he turned, revealing that same grotesque smile. "What did I tell you about this one?" he called, his voice dripping with amusement. "She's going to ruin all of our fun." I wanted to scream, but I couldn't find my voice. Fear rooted me to the spot. I glanced back at the rearview mirror, but the girl was gone, swallowed by the shadows. I was isolated now, the feeling of being hunted clawing at my insides. The man began walking toward my car, slow and deliberate, each step echoing like thunder in the silence. "Pumpkin, I thought we had a deal," he said, approaching my door. The world around me blurred, and all I could think was that help was gone. I was trapped. Then an idea sparked within me. If I couldn't drive away, maybe I could face whatever this was head-on. Before I could lose my nerve, I flung open the door and stepped out, ready to confront him. "Stay away from me," I shouted, my voice shaky yet defiant. He stopped, amused, tilting his head mockingly. "Or what? You think you can fight me?" "Just leave," I insisted, trying to mask my fear with anger, but deep down I knew I was far from ready for whatever he was planning. That's when a roaring sound broke the air, and I turned in shock as a truck came barreling down the road toward us. "Look at that," the man laughed, eyes glinting with madness. "Your ride's here." Before I could process it, the headlights blindsided me, and I realized I was caught in his game. The truck screeched to a halt inches from me, and my heart hammered in my chest. The driver's door swung open, and a pair of headlights spilled onto my face, momentarily blinding me. I stumbled back, unsure of what this new presence meant. "Get in!" A voice shouted from inside the truck. It was a man, face partially obscured by shadows, but I could see the urgency in his eyes. "Run!" the man from the woods yelled, laughter echoing from his mouth. The way he spoke made me hesitate. Was this truck driver here to help, or was it another trap? "Please," the driver urged again, gesturing wildly. The urgency in his voice broke through my confusion. I didn't have time to think twice. I darted toward the truck, my feet pounding against the gravel as I jumped into the passenger seat. "Go!" I shouted, heart racing. The driver slammed on the gas before I even had my seatbelt on. The truck lurched forward, and I turned to look back at the figure. He merely stood there, mocking us, a cruel grin plastered across his face as we sped away. "Who was that guy?" I gasped, trying to catch my breath. "Doesn't matter," the driver said sharply, keeping his eyes on the road. "You're safe now." "Safe?" The word felt foreign. The adrenaline coursing through my veins made it hard to think straight. I glanced around in the darkness, half expecting the man to appear from the shadows again. "What happened out there?" I pressed, needing to understand. "I was driving by when I saw you," said the driver, his grip tightening around the wheel. "You were in trouble. That guy, he preys on people. You were lucky I got there in time." "Lucky?" I scoffed, shaking my head. That didn't feel like luck, it felt like a game. "Exactly," he replied, his voice steady but low. "He enjoys the fear. But it looks like we lost him for now." But my stomach churned. "What do you mean, lost him? Is he coming after us?" "Probably," he admitted, glancing in the rearview mirror. "But we need to put distance between us and him. We can't stop until we're far from that area." As we sped down the winding road, the night felt alive, the trees looming like guardians of some dark secret. I could still see the man's twisted smile burned into my mind, as if he'd tainted the very air around us. Then, just as hope flickered in my chest, the truck's headlights illuminated a figure standing in the middle of the road. "No," I breathed, and panic surged. The driver slammed on the brakes, The tires screamed as the truck skidded to a halt. I gripped the dashboard, staring in horror at the figure. It was the girl again, the one who had warned me. "Get out!" she screamed, her voice piercing the air. I didn't want to believe it, but she was right. Before I could argue, the driver reached for the door. I knew I had to move. This was about to escalate. "Go!" I shouted. But would it really matter? Just then, the girl turned, her face filled with terror. There was a chill in the air. "He's coming." I felt my breath hitch, and everything around me went cold. The driver hesitated, his hand still on the door handle. My heart raced, and I could feel the tension fill the truck. "What's happening?" he asked, glancing between the girl and me. "Just go!" I screamed, panic rising in my voice. I could feel it. The danger was tangible. In an instant, the girl slammed her fists against the hood of the truck, urging us to listen. "You don't understand. If you stay, he'll find you." She was right. I could sense it in my bones. The air felt heavier, almost charged, and the darkness seemed to stretch and shift around us. "Who's coming?" I pressed, my throat dry. "His name doesn't matter," she said, her eyes scanning the shadows, searching for something I couldn't see. "What matters is that you need to get out of here. Now." The driver finally relented and threw the door open. I glanced back at the road, half expecting to see someone emerge from the trees. "We can't just leave," I protested, dread pooling in my stomach. "We won't be safe until we're far away. Trust me." The girl's voice was urgent, almost pleading. Before I could gather my thoughts, she darted toward the trees. My instincts screamed at me to follow her, but I felt rooted in place. The driver's footsteps approached the trees, ready to give chase. "Wait!" I shouted, stepping out of the truck, but I wasn't fast enough. The girl vanished into the shadows, and the driver turned to me bewildered. "What do we do?" Just then, a piercing scream echoed through the night. It came from the woods, the girl's scream. My blood turned cold. "Go after her," I urged without thinking. What if she wasn't just a warning? What if she needed help? He shook his head, but the look in his eyes was a mixture of fear and a sudden realization of what was at stake. "We can't. That thing, it's already here, isn't it?" I said, leaning towards the trees, trying to see through the dark. I felt it looming, a shadow that bore down on me. Just then, a hint of movement caught my eye. Only a few feet away, something shifted beneath the foliage. It was low, moving silently, almost creeping towards us. "Stay in the truck," the driver yelled, his voice strained. But I couldn't budge. The shadows merged together, and then I saw a flash of white, a mask, grinning as it approached between the trees, cutting through the darkness like a serrated blade. "Run!" I barked out, adrenaline surging through me. The driver still hesitated, locked in place by fear. That's when I noticed something glinting on the road ahead, a small metal object that had fallen from the truck when we stopped. "The radio!" I shouted. "If we could call for help, maybe we could turn this around." "I'll grab it." But as I lunged for the fallen piece, the figure lunged too, breaking through the shadows with a speed that made my skin crawl. My hands trembled, and for a split second, all I could do was stare as it closed in. What was I supposed to do now? I barely moved when it lunged at me. Time slowed as I instinctively dropped to the ground, feeling the unsettling rush of air as it passed over me. There was no doubt. It was fast, way too fast. I scrambled away from the figure, pushing myself up on shaky legs. The truck loomed behind me, but I couldn't waste another second. I caught sight of the driver. His eyes were wide, frozen in shock. "Get in! Now!" I shouted, urgency spilling out of me. But the driver didn't react. My heart thundered as I pivoted back toward the shadows, adrenaline kicking in. I had to do something. The girl, where was she? For all I knew, she was out there, just as vulnerable as I was. Out of nowhere, the figure darted back into view, moving like a phantom through the darkness. It turned, and under the low light, I could see the mask it wore, a face twisted in a manic grin, the hollow eyes void of humanity. My instincts screamed for me to run, but I couldn't leave him. "Get in the truck," I yelled again, trying to pull him away from the horror unfurling in front of us. Finally, he snapped out of it and dove into the driver's seat. I hurried to the passenger side, heart pounding against my ribs. I yanked the door open, but my eyes were glued to the figure. It was circling. I jumped in and slammed the door. "Drive!" I shouted, feeling the dread crawling up my spine. The driver hesitated just a heartbeat longer, then threw the truck in gear. The engine roared to life and we lurched forward. "Where do we go?" he yelled, panic lining his voice as he swerved sharply onto the gravel road. "Just drive, away from here," I demanded, glancing back at the rearview mirror. The figure was no longer chasing us. It lingered at the edge of the trees, watching with that unnerving smile. As we gained distance, the driver's expression shifted. "Who was that?" he gasped, hands clenched on the wheel. "I don't know, but we can't stop." I was still shaking from fear, trying to make sense of everything. The girl, the mask, the more I thought about it, the more real it felt. "Did you see their face?" he asked, eyes darting to me. "I didn't want to. It doesn't matter. We need to get away," I replied, my voice unsteady. I felt every bump and turn as we sped down the dark road, desperately searching for safety. "What about the girl?" he asked, his voice just above a whisper. "Forget the girl. We have to—" But I was cut off by a sudden thud beneath us. The truck jostled violently and I shrieked as we skidded. Something had run into the side, a blur of darkness that barely registered before it was gone. "What was that?" the driver exclaimed, his eyes wide with terror. "I don't know." I tightened my grip on the seat, trying to keep myself steady. Ahead, the road dipped sharply, shadows twisting around ominous shapes. That's when everything seemed to freeze. There, on the edge of the road, lay something familiar. "That's the radio," I cried, pointing at the ground where it had fallen. "No way! We can't stop! But we might need it. We have to try." As I looked back at him, the fear in his eyes mirrored my own. But the darkness held more than just our fears, and as the truck slowed down, I realized we'd made a choice we might never be able to take back. The glint of the radio caught my eye again, but so did the shifting shadows emerging from the trees. And something told me we had just woken the beast. I braced myself as the truck lurched to a stop. The sudden stillness was deafening. Panic filled the cab. "This was a mistake," I muttered, my instinct screaming at me to get moving. But I knew I couldn't just leave the radio behind. "Stay in the truck," he hissed, eyes wide. The tension hung thick between us, an urge to flee mixed with the need for a plan. Ignoring him, I yanked the door open. The cool night air hit me like a slap, and for a second I thought about the figure watching from the trees. I forced myself to push aside the creeping dread and climbed out. The shadows around us felt alive, pressure building in the air as I stepped toward the radio. Each crunch of gravel under my feet sounded like a gunshot. I reached for the radio, my fingers grazing the metal surface, but then a noise made my blood run cold. A rustle, a footfall, something close. "Get back," the driver shouted. His voice pulled me to the present. I glanced back at him and caught a glimpse of terror twisting his face. That's when I noticed something move in my peripheral vision. I turned slowly, knowing exactly what I would find. The figure emerged from the trees, more defined now against the dull glow of the truck's lights. The mask glistened in the dark, the manic grin stretching wider as it locked onto me. Fear gripped my throat. I stumbled back toward the truck, heart pounding like it would burst. "Drive! Drive now!" I screamed. The driver's eyes were glued to the figure, paralyzed with fear. He didn't move. "It's right there! We have to go!" I leaped back through the passenger door just as the figure stepped closer, merging shadows with sickening ease. "Start the damn engine!" I yelled, panicking. Finally, he ripped his gaze away and fumbled for the keys. The engine sputtered to life, sending a rush of relief through me, only for it to crash with dread when I looked at the figure again. It was too close now, and the smile on its mask was more chilling than before. "Go, go," I urged, half-turning in my seat as the driver hit the gas. The truck tore down the road, the sudden acceleration lurching me back into the seat. I glanced behind, and the figure was running after us. "Faster!" I screamed, pressing my palms against the dashboard. The speedometer climbed, but the figure kept up, its twisted form a blur against the night. We tore through the darkness, but I had no idea where we were headed. It felt like running without an end, and I could only think about the girl. "Where's the girl?" the driver shouted over the rev of the engine. "I don't know," I replied, fear clawing at my insides. "We can't think about that right now." Ahead I could see the road twisting into a clearing. My mind raced with possibilities, a way out or a trap. "Hold on," I yelled, gripping the handle as he swerved left. The tires screeched against the gravel. That's when everything went black. The headlights blinked out, and the world outside disappeared. "What the?" The driver swore, banging on the steering wheel, but the silence was deafening. The truck rolled to a stop, leaving us shrouded in darkness. Then I heard it. A sound, like a whisper, echoing through the gloom. "Get out." The voice sent chills racing up my spine. It was low and inviting, wrapped in malice. Desperation knotted in my stomach. I knew we weren't safe yet. What had we awakened? The darkness felt suffocating. My pulse thudded in my ears as the whisper echoed around us. "Get out." "Did you hear that?" I barely managed to whisper, my voice trembling. The driver nodded, his eyes wide with fear. What is that?" I wanted to scream that I didn't know. I wanted to curl into a ball and hide, but adrenaline pushed me to lean forward, desperate to see outside. I peered through the windshield, but the void was complete. Dread pooled in my stomach. "What do we do?" I asked, panic creeping into my voice. "Maybe it's gone," he said, almost hoping. His hand trembled against the steering wheel. "We should just stay in the truck. Maybe we can wait it out." Wait for what? For it to come back? My heart raced anew. We can't just sit here. The low whispering rose in intensity. "Get out." "No." I yelled back into the void, and the sound of my own voice feeling like an act of defiance. "I'm not getting out." Suddenly, a soft thud sounded against the truck's metal frame. It was subtle but jarring. "What was that?" he asked, turning pale. I squinted into the dark outside as if straining to see something more than just blackness. The tension built, thick and suffocating. Something was out there, and I couldn't shake the feeling it was watching us. "Turn on the lights," I urged, half pleading. He hesitated, eyes darting around, then reached for the switch. The lights flickered to life, casting eerie beams into the night. What I saw made my breath hitch. The figure stood just a few feet away, outlined against the sharp glow of the headlights. The mask reflected the light, highlighting the twisted grin. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I was frozen in place. "What the hell is wrong with it?" the driver gasped, eyes wide. "I don't know," I replied, panic clawing at me. "Just back the truck up." He hit the gear shift, but the engine sputtered, refusing to cooperate. "Come on. Not now." The figure took a step forward, the smile stretching wider, as if it reveled in our fear. My heart raced as I frantically searched for something to defend ourselves. I saw an old tire iron on the floor. I grabbed it, feeling its weight in my hand. "Just back up," I shouted again, but he stayed rooted, just staring. That's when the truck began to shake. A jolt of panic shot through me as I realized the figure had moved closer, its footfalls silent but insistent against the gravel. "Now please," I yelled, and finally he slammed the truck in reverse. The engine roared as we shot backward, gravel flying. But just as we began to pull away, the figure lunged forward, catching the edge of the truck with a swift, fluid motion. "Go! Go! Go!" I screamed, adrenaline surging. We lurched forward again, and the figure dropped to the ground, disappearing from view. I turned back to see if it was chasing us, but the truck sped away into the night, leaving the clearing behind. "What just happened?" The driver gasped, his hand shaking on the wheel. "I don't know," I said, truthfully shaken. But the chilling reality settled in. What if it wasn't over? And then I remembered the radio at the clearing. "We left the radio," I exclaimed. "What if that was the only way to—" Suddenly my words were interrupted by a loud bang echoing from behind us, cutting through the stillness of the night like a knife. "Someone's here!" I screamed, and the glow of headlights behind us cut through the darkness, revealing another vehicle in pursuit. "Drive faster!" I shouted, and we sped into the dark, fear clawing at my throat. What had we awoken? And we had no idea what was coming next. The truck roared down the gravel road, but the sound of the engine felt feeble against the growing chaos behind us. My heart raced. The headlights from the pursuing vehicle flashed ominously in the rearview mirror, cutting through the shadows like knives. "Who could that be?" I asked, looking over at the driver, who was gripping the wheel with white-knuckled intensity. "I don't know," he murmured, his voice barely audible above the tires crunching over gravel. "What if it's that thing again? There's no way it could catch up this fast," I reasoned. But the doubt gnawed at me. I could feel the weight of something malevolent in the air, pressuring my mind as we raced into the unknown. "Just keep going. Don't stop," I urged, trying to mask my fear. The road twisted and turned, shrouded in darkness, while the other vehicle maintained its relentless pursuit. The driver slammed on the gas, and the engine roared in response, but I could see the other car gaining on us. The fear turned into a bitter taste in my mouth. What if they're coming after us for a reason? I felt the words slip out before I could swallow them down. "Reason or not, we need to get away," he yelled, glancing nervously at the mirror. "We can't let them catch us." Suddenly, the truck hit a pothole, and I almost flew forward against my seatbelt. "Watch out!" I shouted. The headlights from behind danced along the curves in our wake, eerily illuminating the trees that loomed alongside us. With a surge of desperation, I leaned forward, scanning the roadside for anything we could use. "Look for a place to hide," I called out. "Something to block their view." "There's nothing out here," he replied, almost in defeat. "Just trees." Then, in the distance, I saw it. A narrow side road veering off to the right, barely visible under the moonlight. "That!" I pointed. "Turn there!" He swerved sharply, tires screeching as we bounced onto the dirt path. The trees closed in around us, branches slapping against the sides of the truck, creating an eerie canopy overhead. We jostled and bounced, but the other vehicle followed, tires digging into the dirt, less restrained by the pavement. The faint roar of their engine told me they hadn't given up. "Can you lose them?" I asked, anxiety creeping back into my voice. "I'm trying," he replied, the tension vibrating through his voice. "But I can't tell where we're going in all this darkness." I could feel the thudding of my heart, matching the rhythmic bump of the road. Every turn we took felt like a roll of the dice, chance and panic intertwining like vines around my throat. The fear that overtook me was raw and primal. That's when we heard it, an ear-piercing shriek echoing through the night, reverberating off the trees as if it had come from the very soul of the forest. The noise sent shivers down my spine, electrifying the air around us. "What was that?" he gasped, eyes wide in the dim glow of the headlights. "I don't know, but we need to keep moving." The urgency pulled at my lungs. The last thing I wanted was to find out what was making those sounds. In that moment, the headlights from the pursuing vehicle swept across the clearing ahead. I squinted, trying to make sense of what I saw. "Stop!" I yelled suddenly, fear clawing at my throat. "What?" he asked, confusion washing over him. Back up. They're not just behind us. I indicated through the windshield. There's something in front of us. We're trapped. And that's when I saw it. A figure, half hidden behind the trees at the edge of the path, watching us intently. My breath caught, terror flooding every fiber of my being. "Get us out of here," I shouted, and that's when everything went dark. The headlights flickered off again, plunging us back into a suffocating darkness. My heart raced as I strained to see anything beyond the windshield, gripping the dash as if it could keep me anchored. The driver's breathing was loud and uneven, echoing my own growing panic. I could feel the vibrations from the truck as the tension mounted. "Start the engine," I urged, my voice tight with fear. But instead of a response, I heard a low growl resonate through the air, crawling under my skin. It sounded unnatural, like something that didn't belong to this world. The driver thrashed with the keys, but the truck remained lifeless, a predator caught in a deadly trap. I turned to the darkened shadows, desperate, yearning to see the figure again, but it was gone. "Max, please, let's go," I yelled, knowing we had so little time. My fear was palpable, blotting out all logic, demanding to escape. "I'm trying," he yelled back, frustration lacing his words. "But we need to know what we're up against." Suddenly, a noise broke the haunting silence. A sharp crack resounded, branches snapping nearby. My adrenaline surged as I turned to look, and my instincts screamed that it was coming for us. "Get out of here, now!" I shouted, but the words seemed to tangle in the air. My heart raced as the driver banged his fist against the steering wheel in agony, his fingers still fumbling with the ignition. The darkness felt alive, wrapping around us like a serpent drawing closer, its breath hot against my skin. Then, with a reluctant roar, the engine sputtered back to life. The lights flicked on just as a figure emerged from the trees once more, but this time, it was different. "I know you're in there," the voice called, a chorus of mocking laughter underscoring it. My heart sank. It was him. Max hit the gas just as the figure lunged forward, and I felt the tires grip the ground beneath us. The truck lunged forward, and as we tore down the road, I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. "They're following us," I shouted, glancing back. I could see the headlights growing larger, chasing us into the night. "Hold on," Max yelled as he swerved, narrowly avoiding a thick tree trunk that loomed ahead. I braced for impact, wishing we could lose them in the dense woods. Then suddenly, the path opened up, revealing a clearing ahead. It felt eerie and exposed, but there was no time to weigh our options. I knew we had to push through. "Go left," I urged, pointing toward a shadowed path that veered off the road. Max followed my lead without question, and in that instant, everything felt surreal. The shadow of a tree towered nearby, the moonlight illuminating its gnarled branches. But as we rounded a corner, something collided with the truck's rear. The impact jarred us, sending a jolt through the vehicle, and I instinctively turned to see what was happening. The figure had returned, its laughter echoing through the night again. I felt it slice right through me. "Max," I screamed, "we have to get out of here." But he just kept pressing the gas, desperation fueling his speed. We barreled through the shadows, branches slapping against the truck like clamoring spirits trying to hold us back. My heart raced, and fear wedged itself deeper into my throat. What if it was just playing with us, leading us to our doom? Then suddenly, I spotted something ahead, a jagged cliffside overlooking a steep drop. "Stop! Stop!" I shouted as we approached, but Max was gripping the wheel with a mixture of fear and resolve, and I felt the truck lurch toward the edge. Just then, the figure lunged, its grotesque mask twisting as it reached for us. My entire being screamed at me to pull away, so I grabbed onto the dashboard, eyes widening. Dread coursed through my veins as Max swerved to avoid it, barely turning the wheel in time. We veered dangerously close to the edge, and I could barely breathe as I braced for impact. In that split second, clarity hit me. I didn't want to face this evil anymore. I wanted to escape. to leave everything behind. But as Max fought to regain control, everything went black again. The headlights flickered out for what felt like eternity. When the lights came back on, we were once again engulfed by darkness. I felt weightless, like I'd been pulled out of time. The figure had vanished, leaving only echoes of its laughter behind. I glanced at Max, panic-stricken. "Where are we?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "I don't know. It's like we've entered another world." His eyes darted around, searching for an exit from this twisted nightmare. I could see the shadows shifting beyond, and my gut twisted into knots. Then, as though sensing our despair, the figure reappeared, its grin more pronounced, almost gleeful. I knew this was it. This was our moment to face whatever horror had been unleashed in our lives. "Why are you with her?" it taunted. The word slipped into my mind like a delicate whisper, repeating a refrain I never wanted to hear again. In that moment, something clicked inside. The fear I'd carried for so long curdled into rage, shaping into a steadiness I didn't recognize. "You're not in control anymore." I surprised myself as I shouted, my voice steady and piercing through the dark. Max blinked, his surprise matching mine, but behind me the figure faltered. Perhaps it had not expected the words. "No," it hissed, drawing closer. "Leave us," I shouted, willing my defiance to shake off the shadows surrounding me. And then, there was stillness. The looming figure wavered before me, uncertainty flickering in its hollow eyes. I could sense the anger pulsing in the air, the weight of reckoning drawing closer. What happened after that? I couldn't say. The last thing I remember was a rush of icy wind, and then the darkness inhaled me deep into its depths. I woke up on grass, somewhere familiar. The sun was rising, casting warmth over my skin. I looked around, disoriented, the echoes of laughter still trailing like ghosts in the corners of my mind. Max sat beside me, blinking in the morning light. The shadows had receded, and it looked like we were, somehow, alive. But with that realization came another. Questions tumbled into my thoughts. Had we truly escaped, or was this merely a respite? I glanced back toward the tree line. The shadows lingered still. The evil had dimmed, but not vanished. I didn't know if I would ever be free from the specter of the man in the mask. But one thing was clear. While the night had taken many things from me, it had also given me something I never expected, the strength to fight back. I took a deep breath, the weight of the night swirling in the back of my mind. I still think about what happened often, about the laughter that chased us and the girl who warned me. I wonder if they're still out there. But mostly I try not to think about it.